Canadian Talk.
Okay. Oh, that's not the thing I wanted to play. Hold on. There we go. This is my intro music.
Nice.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine make it, so I don't get sued. Yeah.
I just know that if I put music in anything, someone's gonna be like have it striked for something.
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
so,
right. So I have it made from scratch. So everybody, welcome back to episode 10 of Canadian Talk. I have a huge guest on today, basically a celebrity guest. His name is Daniel Bordman. He decided to do a little bit of charity work today for Canada Day, I think, and come on some smaller shows. So we got our Great Westerns cracked. We're ready to chat. Thanks for coming on, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So yeah, like I was telling my friends I have no idea why you're even coming on the show because you're absolutely huge.
I wouldn't call myself absolutely huge.
To
I
me,
mean,
you are. You do like a history show. I know where you you go through history. You walk through a lot of detailed things and try to bring it into the present and talk about and make points and make debate points for how you think things can be better. And I think that's super admirable. I think that's great. I essentially
thank you.
I think that's the best use of the internet that one can do.
And thank you for describing it that way, because I find that accurate as to what I intend to do.
Yes.
Is actually
Yes.
like when I sort of try and break down, okay, what am I doing? Like, you put out a Patreon and blah blah blah. You do all these things. You make videos on the internet.
And to me, intention is all that matters too at the end of the day. So I was telling my friends I have no idea why you were going to come on the show, but I'm so happy that you did. Thanks so much. I was so nervous.
Well, I mean, personally, I do believe rising tide raises all boats. I'm always very happy to help out anyone sort of in this thing. Like, I might joke sometimes that, like, no one else do conservative commentary but me, but I do believe that, what I do makes room for more people to come out of the same ecosystem and do it, and they don't actually cut away from my market, they grow it. So, like, you can argue this is not as altruistic as you're making it out to be, but I'm happy to be here on this podcast.
So you consider yourself a conservative commentator then?
Yeah, I mean, a conservative political pundit, let's be honest. I mean, I'm not 100% down the line with all the conservative parties' nonsense sometimes, as some people may be aware. But I'm right of center. I have some libertarian-leaning values. There's times I will stray from libertarianism. I try not to define myself by labels because I'm a millennial. But I'm pretty open with my biases. People usually know where I stand on certain things. If you mention the carbon tax, that could set me off for about 20 minutes on some sort of rambling tangent.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you really quick because I know we haven't talked much beforehand. I've seen your stuff. How old are I don't know much about you. Like, how old are you? And yeah.
So I'm 28.
Okay. And what
1991.
You said you did stand up for 5 years. Can you tell me about what happened there? And
I started out when I was 20. Third year university, Queen's University, being disillusioned with the education system for many different reasons. Every exam period you have that sort of like midlife crisis, like, what the hell am I doing? I'm not going to be a psychologist when I grow up. I was taking a psychology degree or whatever.
Okay.
And then, like, forever, it's like, I always wanted to do comedy, and no one cared about your stupid teenage opinions. Then I was 20 one day, I'm like, well, my opinions are no longer stupid teenage opinions, so let's see if I can make some people laugh.
Exactly.
So I signed up for, like, a comedy contest, the Time to Laugh comedy contest, can't remember what it was called, but it was Time to Laugh Comedy Club, which doesn't exist anymore in Kingston. January...
And you grew up in kind of Toronto area?
Yeah, and I just started doing comedy in Queens, which was interesting because then you do it. There's two different things. There's Toronto and Kingston. So Kingston, you do it and you go into town, and it's fine. But then anytime we would do comedy at like these student bars, right, or places just students, they would eventually get shut down. I think I got shut down. 2 were shut down by a friend of mine, Ben Bankus, and like over innocuous stuff, like just you would just see the horde culture. So that's when I first started to sort of be aware of sort of the free speech problems in university. Now there was other problems at university that there was like standard far left highly anti-Semitic things that they say no we don't hate Jews even though we're saying this nonsense. It's Israel or something, and it's like ugh. So there was that type of hypocrisy, and then you saw the free speech stuff, and then I'll fast forward to the interesting part here that people get to. So when I was getting into comedy, I met another comedian, a refugee from Iran, like an actual, like, the people that I've been saying have existed. I said, no, there's liberal people in Muslim countries, and they want freedom and equality for us. They're not, and then, I met one of them. I've met them before. But then we basically realized that we had the same, we're both sort of conservatives, and this is before Trump won the nomination. I was like a bit more politically involved. We just kind of realized, I looked at my friends, who I really admire comedy, and I realized, like, all right, who would I rather be president of the United States? Would it be Donald Trump or their perfect candidate, the perfect candidate they can create now? And I like these people. And it took me no time. I'm like, Donald Trump. And I wasn't a Trump supporter, but the person their hero was a more attractive Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, after the age of Obama, it was kind of time for more of an extreme politician, extreme right, extreme left, and we ended up with extreme right. Right. Yeah. And it was just is their failure to be reasonable. I have to drink crappy Ontario beer because the beer store doesn't offer variety. So this beer is brought to you by this is brought to you by pseudo-communist nonsense. So I was going to ask you from before when you said you were disillusioned with the education system. What do you mean by that?
So I did notice one, like. So I would have considered myself going to university a bit more centrist than I came out. So when I was 18, my first vote was for Stephen Harper. So I was never like a full lefty, but if I had to vote in 2008, I probably would have voted for Obama over whatever, and slowly I got disillusioned with Obama as I saw everything he did failed, and he didn't see it, or he saw it and didn't care, and that was another thing.
Yeah, he was.
But one, you see sort of the stupid parts of education, like taking a sociology class, like the first day of sociology in university. Literally, the professor comes in like, "Hey guys," he puts on Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire" with all these different things, and then the class literally ends with, "This is Michel Foucault. He is the most important man to ever exist, and we're going to look at everything from Foucault's point of lens." Then we watched the movie Psycho for no reason for 2 classes, but then everything was like this postmodern, and then they're just learning about and I'm like. I came out of sociology. I'm like, this is a cult. This isn't whatever. Like
they need to have a point. They need to have a point in education where they actually have a section of the class where they say, hey, it's important that you recognize this knowledge needs to be translated into something that can make money for you. Like at the end of the day,
or something that relates to the world. I would settle for that. The sociology was worse because. One, I remember in a sociology paper, I quoted a psychology source as one of my sources. They said you're not allowed to do that, which is like crazy. If you were to quote a biology paper or a physics paper in a psychology course, it's scientific journal. You're allowed to do that, but you have to sociology, which is my first red flag. And the other ones I realized is like, I would go and I'd ask the TA to explain so there's this, it was like postmodern theory. I'm like, explain this because it doesn't make sense. He's like, oh no, we can't explain postmodern theory until third year sociology. It's like. Well, this is Scientology now. It's like you can't get the answers until you buy the next book.
You got to get to the correct levels. You need to give us more money first before we give you this special knowledge.
Yeah, if I had asked a psychology or a neuropsychologist, hey, I don't understand this about this limbic pathway. Doesn't dopamine come out of here? But shouldn't this create a deeper? You'd be like, well, no, I can't tell you for another 2 years. You'd be like, well, let me try and explain this to you.
Yeah,
but that's not how sociology worked. But there's other courses.
One small tangent that I'd like to go off on really quick. Is Scientology. So are you religious at all?
No.
No, not at all.
Culturally, so I mean, I'm Jewish. You can see, I'm not wearing a kippah. I'll eat a cheeseburger. I don't keep kosher. There's way too many rules in Judaism. You need obsessive compulsive disorder to be an observant Jew. You have to. People who don't know anything about Judaism don't know how crazy intense it is. I don't understand how Ben Shapiro has time to do anything other than be Jewish if he's an Orthodox Jew. I guess he's not people that's why I love the Jewish conspiracies. The Jews are trying to take over the world. These Orthodox Jews, if you knew what the Orthodox Jews were up to, like, you would just laugh your ass off, because they're literally like, we have to go over there, spin in a circle 3 times, then say these prayers. Then we have to go there, spin in a circle 4 times, wash our hands and pray. Like, the whole thing is just like they're going in groups of 10 to go pray different places and like put on the wrapping.
Is that called?
Yeah, the Hasidic ones.
Yeah,
the Hasidic ones. The Hasidic ones, them trying to take over the world is the funniest thing I've ever thought of, because like they don't have time. They're just dumb. They're just.
I don't know a bunch about Ben Shapiro, but I saw him on Rogan, and I was very amazed at his arguments, I guess, for anti-gay.
Or his arguments against gay marriage. Now,
yes, he only argues, I guess, against gay marriage.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be fair to him and say he's not anti-gay.
This is its negatives on, like, as a family unit. We expect that this type of family unit will work better in performance than this type of family unit. And it's like, I kind of get what he's getting at, but...
Yeah. So, I mean, you can be charitable to that argument, and you kind of understand it, but the problem is, like...
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a non-religious person, like, I don't care, marry the gays. You know, show me 2 queers, I'll marry them right now. So I don't have a problem with it. Now, there is something, you know, that both sides sort of have to talk about. So, what if data comes out that says that heterosexual couples, you know, raise children at a rate of, you know, X mental illnesses per 1,000, right?
That's what he was talking about. Yeah.
Right? That's what he's talking about. And what if we find out that in gay couples, it is X plus 5 per 1,000, or whatever it is. So the rate is higher. So there's 2 questions here of, why is it higher, right? And 2, is it significant? So, you know, what, like, the question is, if we do these studies and we find out you know, there is a difference, but it's not statistically significant. You know, is that, you know, then we'll hold it against them, right? Yeah. So, like, or if it's marginal. So, like, what if, like, gay couples can do 92% as good a job on average in terms of preventing mental illness in their children as heterosexual couples? Like,
especially when the main part of all this too is that we're talking about a subjective study at the end of the day here. We're talking about happiness or perceived
and rates of mental illness. Are gay couples okay? But then so then there's all these things of, like, this is just a raw number. Then you can break this. I mean, this is the psychology coming in. But we have 92%, and this is totally made up numbers pulling out of my ass. This isn't true. I'll just clarify. So if it's 92% of, you know, gays are 92% as good a job by terms of children with mental illness, well, then you have to go to, like, what are the other factors of kids getting mental illness? I mean, gay couples tend to make more than straight couples. Again, that's because they have no kids. But if you have gay couples usually existing at a upper middle class, these are the people who are more likely to then get their kids tested. Like, so I can tell you this as someone who comes from the Jewish community, right? 90% of the Jewish community is learning disabled and gifted, right?
I see what you're saying. So you're saying that sorry to interrupt. There is maybe massive amounts of undiagnosed mental illness on the other side, whereas on the other side, the mental illness is
or it's not so much undiagnosed, is its willingness to seek out diagnosis. So I have a theory, especially taking a psychology degree. If everyone in Canada were to go see 100 psychologists or 10 psychologists or whatever, and just talk to them normally about your life, how many Canadians would be diagnosed with a mental illness, do you think? Right? Everyone talks to 10 psychologists, right? Everyone is perfectly candid and honest. You just talk, and how many of us come out with a mental illness? I would be shocked if the number is below half. Yeah. So right? So it's like, so it's like, okay, what are you measuring here? It is a problem with the argument. And
because at the end of the day, just if I could get one thing, and it would just be like, is it? I sometimes have these certain blanket beliefs where we kind of almost all have these little disabilities that we self-medicate, and really, do we need to even know what they are? Like, do other people need to know what they are? That maybe
it's one of those. I totally get what you're saying. It's at a point, yes, but not everything, right? Yeah. So there's legitimate. My best friend.
We shouldn't focus our personalities. Right? Yeah, we shouldn't focus our personalities on our negatives. We should focus on
that too.
Because when I was young, I always talk about this, but when I was young, I had major problems in the sense that I was so over competitive that it affected, let's say, my friendships or anything like that. And I learned, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about before that?
Well, like overcoming our faults and not being
Yes.
defined by them.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and,
So,
and you
so
said,
what I
like,
did,
yeah,
sorry, let me finish.
yeah,
So there was a negative effects there that I tried not to focus on. I instead funneled my addictive, competitive personality into, let's say, sports or school, and then I tried to use it to sway positives for myself. And that's what I think everybody needs to. That's a life skill that everybody needs
yeah.
to learn. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, and that makes sense for the majority, and then people go crazy because there is a point where it's like, well, no, these people actually need help. Like this person is like actually going through psychosis, has schizophrenia. Like this woman was like, okay, now we step in, but
Yep.
where's that line is something we're trying hard as
And
society to find.
And I have a tough time putting the line anywhere above schizophrenia too. I mean, anything short of that, all these different self-esteem disorders, I have so much empathy for those people. But a lot of times the solution is in simple stuff like exercise,
diet and exercise,
and
I'm not going to say like cognitive behavioral therapy is more effective than medication for a lot of things.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I mean, so I mean, don't be afraid to seek out help. You can admit your weaknesses, and we all have. I mean, I think you're an abnormal human being if at some point in your life, by the time you've reached 40, or if there isn't a period of a couple months, you said that person had depression or anxiety.
Yeah.
I think that's abnormal.
Yeah. Self-doubt is what leads to success. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, but also like everyone goes through hard times. So like, I mean, so it's how quick are we to diagnose people with depression? Some people legitimately have it. Some people just go through periods. It's a very complicated thing. And I mean, I don't think we're willing to have these conversations. I think we're at the point where as a society we want to talk about having these conversations, but I don't think we're ready to have them en masse yet, because we have Mental Health Day, but when you look at it, and this goes left and right, the second something happens that doesn't fit our agenda, well, mental illness, right? The Danforth shooting, someone in Toronto, like with ties to Pakistan, and a bunch of AK-47s, and it looks like terrorism, and his brother was found with enough chemical weapons to wipe out the countries 10 different times.
Oh my God.
Mental illness. It was mental illness. No one look anymore. It's just someone going crazy. Okay, so there's the left claim mental illness, and then the right, someone shoots up in El Paso or whatever that AK-47 was. Like, oh well, he was crazy, right? The guns. It's like, okay, now you're scapegoating mental illness as well. So mental illness becomes a scapegoat for any sort of social political thing that doesn't fit our narrative, and both sides do that.
Yeah, that's true. Are you what do you think? Just give me a quick blurb about guns. What do you think?
I'm fine with
that we should.
I'm against all the liberal. I'm against all of Trudeau's gun policy.
Okay.
Listen,
yeah, he just put that ban, right? That I heard.
Yeah, the ban is ridiculous.
It's illegal, or he didn't do it right, or like. So yeah, Trudeau just did the ban on certain kinds of machine guns and whatever. So
and he also banned some websites too.
Yeah, do you think that we should be banning? Because I don't know. Because I don't really. Everybody, I don't know why we need assault rifles. I do like we should be allowed to have long muzzle, hunting rifles and that type of stuff. But
what I learned though, and listen, I know very little about guns, and I'll preface that I'm a city boy. But people explain to me, it's like, okay, a lot of it is like there's no definition, there's no classification for an assault rifle, and semi-automatic rifles is like people have to understand. Semi-automatic means you pull the trigger, one bullet comes out. That's semi-automatic, right? Instead of like a bolt action is you have to do all it. Like the semi-automatic is one click, one bullet. That's semi-automatic. So most hunting rifles, most long rifles are semi-automatic, right? You pull the trigger, a bullet comes out.
Yeah.
So
I feel like reload time should maybe just that'd be a simple metric you could add into there, and just if reload time is more than 3 seconds.
Yeah, but the thing is, all these guns you can get from the States. So all the dangerous guns we're talking about, all the killings in Canada, they come from black market. So
so they're going to be there anyway.
None of the laws we've passed would have actually done anything to prevent any of the crimes that the law was said to protect. And even the liberals will say this, that this gun ban wouldn't have prevented what happened in Halifax, but I think it's just virtue signaling, right? And it hurts law-abiding gun owners. Like, there's sort of, I think then you get into the sort of philosophical, like, do you have the right to protect yourself, right? Do you have the right to hunt for your own food? Like, these are important rights we have to talk about as a society. Like, do you have the right, if someone breaks into your house, to defend your ground? Like,
I've heard like a lot of stories where people are getting in trouble when they'll have somebody break into their house, and then Yeah, and like what you said, this is a lot of the argument that I see a lot is, yeah, essentially, if you make laws that are too complicated, you're just taking guns from the good people, like you said, and then
Yeah,
guns from the
and
black market will always be there, and we're just going to be less equipped to defend ourselves,
so,
I guess.
yeah, if you want to crack down on guns, okay, let's crack down on guns. But in Canada, that realistically means we have to crack down on sort of black market gun
Yeah.
running, right? We
Have
have
you
to
seen
crack down
kind
on
of
gang crime.
Ted Nugent's debates
No,
on guns?
no.
I basically agree with everything he says. So
All right.
on guns. So if anybody out there wants the complete story. So what else do we got here? So do you play any sports?
Back in the day, I was
Yeah, what'd you
a big sports guy. Hockey,
Oh,
Abbey
cool.
Road Mighty Ducks. We played hockey. I played football.
Mhm.
Um,
Do you think CTE is a thing?
yes, but like, listen, I'm not an expert. So I had 5 concussions growing up. So
I think I
none
maybe
from
had one or
football.
two. None that ever
Uh,
made me throw up though. Like
Yeah.
so is that now we're talking about a gray area again as to how we
Yeah,
consider
so,
which concussion
so
is
how
serious.
CTT, like, I actually do, like, I mean, you look at, like, Mike Webster, famous center from the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, he died at, like, greatest center of all time, arguably, dies, homeless in a car. They look at his brain, it looks the same like a 95-year-old patient with Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
right?
So there's
That's the thing.
something
But
there.
this is also why I think athletes should, I'm happy with them being paid millions of dollars. Like, this is the
Yeah.
bargain,
There's
right?
more risk than
These
people
are
realize.
warriors.
Yeah.
They're playing for entertainment. I'm glad they make millions of dollars a year.
Yeah, there's certain
Right.
sports that could maybe be recalibrated, but ultimately you're right. The market rules the compensation.
If the NFL wants to say, hey, for the players' union, we should have some sort of long-term health care thing that should be bargained in, health care for life if you're a veteran for, if you've made it into the NFL, yeah, collectively bargain for that. I think that helps offset the things. But, I'm not a big, I mean, individual sports. So like, I don't watch a lot of UFC or boxing or whatever. But I mean,
I'm
it's not
excited
like
for the UFC this coming weekend.
Yeah, but I love watching football. But I don't like, oh, there's UFC fans. I hate boxing fans because they like are snooty towards UFC fans. Like,
Yeah.
oh, boxing, the sweet science. You're watching someone get punched in the face for a living.
Yeah.
Like, calm down.
It's pretty
So-
crazy, yeah. UFC is like a gladiator sport. I'm not a fan, but I do watch the special fights because I like betting because like I'm a
Yeah.
big poker guy. I
Oh,
paid
yeah.
for my university with poker.
Nice.
And so I really like to bet. And then a lot of times I can just help my friends pick the right fighter because I watch every Joe Rogan episode. So I just by default I learn a lot about the fighters.
I think sports betting is good. Like, I mean,
make a
okay,
lot of
gambling
money.
is bad, but like you can make a lot of money.
Have you
I
seen
like
Have you seen that
sports-
new Uncut Gems? You seen that one?
No, I've heard of it.
Check it out. Yeah, it's
Is that on
Adam
Netflix?
Sandler.
Like the crazy sports?
Yeah, it's
thing?
a Jewish movie too, and it's like Adam
Oh,
Sandler,
oh.
and he does betting, and it's pretty
I've not
crazy.
seen
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. So I'm in favor of sports, and my thing with sports is I go into it eyes wide open. I'm happy they make millions of dollars. I think they provide millions of dollars for the community and whatever. It's a business. Get what you can. And don't like, but also, yeah, if you want to increase like helmet quality and like whatever, yeah, like,
Yeah.
should the NHL invest in helmets that are the best for the players, even if they might look a bit silly? Yeah, okay, I'd rather watch hockey and know that the concussion rate is, 11% instead of 17%. I'm making up numbers in a metric, but you get what I mean.
No, I get your
like,
point. I get your point. Yeah, totally. So so those are sports you played. I didn't lose your audio, did I?
no, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I played some sports. That's cool. Hey, I wanted to do a word association. Do you know what that?
Okay.
You must know what that is now that
Yeah.
you're a psychologist.
Yeah, it's not the most hard science, but good. But hit me.
Okay, here it comes. As fast as you can. So that's the key. But don't finish the sentences. If it's blue, don't say berries. Blueberry. Like, Okay. Here we go. Word association with Daniel Bordman. White.
People.
Hill.
Die on hill.
Okay. Try not to put it in a sentence.
Okay.
Nuisance.
Aaron O'Toole.
Fun.
Not Aaron O'Toole.
Okay. Small.
Aaron O'Toole's genitals.
Okay. I can't keep up. Anger.
Me at Aaron O'Toole.
Okay, here we go. Black.
My soul when I think of Aaron O'Toole.
Short.
Well, we already did this, but me. Yeah.
Think of yourself.
Jewish genes. Yeah, 5'8".
Jewish
It's not.
genes. Okay.
Yeah,
Bully.
it's
Bully.
Aaron O'Toole's campaign manager.
Boom,
Campaign
okay.
chair. Sorry. Yeah.
Friend.
Not Aaron O'Toole.
Oh, good.
No, my mind might be a bit stuck in a place
Yeah,
right now.
I think we got you stuck in a gully, so we'll end it at that. Yeah, cool. So, in Toronto, what, so you've been there your whole life, and I know you just moved there. You just moved to somewhere else. Obviously, nowhere specific, but just somewhere else in Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your growing up in Toronto? What is your guys' view of Saskatchewan as a province? And the people that are from there, can you try to give me an impression growing up of what people around you made Saskatchewanians out to be?
I would say very little is thought of Saskatchewan in Toronto. Toronto is a weird place because it's a weird thing because Canada has the Toronto is bad, so there's a bit of us against the world, but we don't really care. So it's sort of a one-sided rivalry between Toronto and the rest of Canada. Torontonians, they think they think so much of themselves. We don't really think much of anyone, including ourselves. If I had to, but Alberta gets the sort of cowboy thing. Everyone has their views on Quebec. The Maritimers are seen as the most happy, kind people in the world.
Yeah.
Your West Coast hippies. The problem is Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and I guess the territories there, totally get lost in.
Kind of get lost in the middle.
It's just flat. There's flat lands and farms. My dad loves Saskatoon. He thinks it's beautiful. My dad really likes. When he go visit there, he really likes Saskatchewan. But it would be disingenuous to say that his love of your province is indicative of the entire city.
Fair enough.
You guys like the Rough Riders way more than we like the Argos. That's what we know.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Everybody thinks that. Yeah, we love the football stuff. I guess. I don't like it at all. So.
Yeah, CFL 9 teams, 6 of them make the playoffs. Might as well give them orange slices at halftime.
So how much do you know about Scientology?
Enough to know that whatever I say, I will be sued for.
Okay, that's true. You're right. We should avoid it.
We watch South Park. I'll go after people with deep legal pockets, and I'll stand my ground. But I'm still as someone who's probably one of the least afraid of frivolous lawsuits in the country for the greater good. I'm not even crazy enough to take on the Scientologists.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Man, so talking about lawsuits, the system. I guess the system of law. You don't have any training in what did you go to university for, by the way?
Sorry?
What did you go to university for?
Psychology. So I have a basic psychology degree.
Okay.
I did stand up. I did tour guiding. I've worked in. I've just been rambling on for about 8 years now.
Okay, fair enough. But
and sometimes people pay me.
Yeah.
So I have no legal training. I have some views on the Canadian legal system. I think our legal system,
because I have strong
is a
views
bit
on this. Yeah.
Very wishy-washy, and I think that's a bit dangerous. It can save us, but it could also
that's
damn
almost
us.
all it can do.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example that I think is the best example of the Canadian Supreme Court and Canadian legal system.
Yeah.
Assisted suicide, which is something I totally respect both sides' view on. You're not going to get a strong assisted suicide thing on me. It's a complicated issue. All right, but I'm just going to say we can all agree assisted suicide, assisted dying is complicated. The reason why assisted suicide is legal in Canada is the Supreme Court ruled that not having the ability to kill yourself violates your right to life. And I say, what?
Yeah.
Listen, I can have complicated views on assisted suicide. There's that's a subject for another day. But in no way do I believe that not being able to kill yourself violates your right to life. Find a better legal explanation for why we should have assisted suicide.
No
but
doubt.
kind of in the courts, they're going to say, not dying violates your right to life, and people will be like, wait, what? So this is the Canadian legal system can just kind of decide anything on a whim. What do we feel like?
How can we put it in writing when it comes to those Supreme Courts and a lot of times civil courts, and
social justice tribunals. The fact that we have these quasi kangaroo courts for that Jessica Yaniv can just abuse any day of the week.
It's more about what a single person thinks when they glance at a paper than what actually happens in any way, shape, or form. It's a time issue.
I have so many problems with the laws being put in, and a lot of my problems is like the ambiguity with stuff like this. And if you leave room for sociopaths, like I call it the Jessica Yaniv rule. If you leave room in the legal system for sociopaths to abuse it, someone will abuse this. And I've made the case that when Bill C-16, the enshrining gender expression into law is a complete and utter disaster. Now I can get down with gender identity. So I make a difference with gender identity. We can keep as in the anti-discrimination laws. It doesn't present that many problems. But gender expression needs to be taken out because it is so dangerous and so rife with abuse. And you see this with Jessica Yaniv saying, hey, I want to come to your house in front of your young little girls, which I have a history of being involved in sexual abuse with or something, and I want you to wax my penis and say it's a vagina. Like, no.
Yeah. So, like, this is like Jordan Peterson type stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you support? Do you support, like, you like all the stuff he says, and what do you think?
I mean, there's no one I support everything he says. I started to get into politics around the exact same time Jordan Peterson made his first video, so that we kind of took a stand around the exact same time. So I've always had great respect. I've always had great respect for Peterson, and I found his biblical lectures very interesting.
Yeah. He's very religious. That's
and then he became a bit of a self-help guy. Now, there's some actual religious understanding that he's given that I actually really like, and I have adopted, and we can do that later. But I have a different view of Peterson. So Peterson, took his stand, did the Bill C-16 thing, and the anti-biased, implicit bias retraining, which is ridiculous. And I really respected him for that. Then he came up and started saying, and he did this, and I'm not saying he's lying, but he said, I'm not even doing politics. Right? He would do his sort of self-help tours, like teaching men how to be better people, clean your room, that whole thing, 7 rules for life, which I'm fine with him doing, like, I mean, and he was pretty honest with it. Like, what he was doing was just recycling common psychological knowledge throughout the ages.
And I'm like,
modern. Yeah, he's just taking common, like,
taking the stigma
Carl Rogers, William James, all these people that said these things, he's just laying them out in a modern context. I think that was fine. And but you say, listen, I didn't do anything political. No, I actually disagree. You actually did do something political at the start, and I greatly admire him for it. Right? He took a stand. Right? He took a stand. He saw these laws are unfair. He said this implicit bias retraining. This is ridiculous. It's proven to not work, and also it's the government saying we have to retrain you mentally to make you an acceptable civilian. And this Bill C-16 thing, here's how it violates people's civil rights. It legislates compelled speech into law. What's the price of freedom? And Jordan Peterson said, one man. Right? He stood on that hill. He said, this is the line in the sand. I'm going to stand on it. I thought it was a valid stance. I thought it was a noble stance, and it was political.
And then to add the comedic spin to the end of it, and then he ends up being addicted to pills, and now we all hope he makes it out of that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the pills he's on, though, to be fair, though. So, okay, I'll give this. My father is an addiction specialist. So,
okay. I watched Dr. Drew, so I'm a specialist.
So my dad's sort of very qualified in this, and I can't remember the pills that Peterson was on, and then this came up,
they're anti-anxiety.
Anti-anxiety, it's the anti-anxiety benzodiazepines or something. He's like, so I'm like, there's the thing of Jordan Peterson being like addicted to these anti-anxiety benzodiazepines. He's like, and it's like, those are way harder to get off of than heroin. Like, that's the most addictive substance in the world. So of course he's addicted. Like he was saying, like, okay, here's something necessary, but like people have to understand, these anti-anxiety drugs, like, the thing he was prescribed was strong, and like you can't get off that, and then especially with a stressor in his life, like, oh, you're on that shit, and then your wife gets cancer, like.
You can imagine how much hate he was getting too for just taking such a hard stance, such a hard factual stance in everything, and just kind of leaving it up to his own abilities to be able to communicate with these hit artists on these talk shows that obviously me and you are trying to combat against, all these bullshit shows with ladies that are not ladies or men, but just doing these hit pieces on him where they're trying to back him into some corner on equality of outcome or on equality of pay and stuff like that. That's not a proper interview. It's a proper interview when you sit and you talk like this. Like, let's get real here. I can take a soundbite out of this, and then at least it'll be in proper context. Whereas these people are just laying out 10-minute hit pieces on people, trying to take them down. I
Yeah,
despise that.
it's yeah, and I think and he went viral. The Kathy Newman interview, like that went viral.
Yeah,
And people
a
saw
bunch of
that.
them went viral. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you feel bad for the guy because your wife gets cancer, you're on crazy.
Yeah.
And he was always very honest about the fact that he's had struggles with depression, anxiety, and his
Yeah.
need to medication. So,
Uh-huh.
and it just
His
and
courage
then,
is off the
yeah,
charts.
yeah,
It's off
and
the
knowing the
charts.
types of meds he was on, and then like talking to an addiction specialist and him saying like, well, yeah, of course you'd be addicted to that. Like you're more likely to die than get off of those. Like no
Yeah,
one really
exactly.
gets off of those.
Exactly.
People
So-
don't really realize that, and it sucks because then they say, oh, he was a self-help guy, but now he's addicted to drugs, so everything he said is invalid.
Yeah,
and again,
I'm
this
not
goes
saying
back to what
that,
we're talking. You're not saying that, but this is what but this then goes back to our mental health talk we had earlier, where it's again another example how both sides are so we need Bell mental health talk, and the
Yeah,
right is
yeah.
bigoted and they don't care
Yeah.
about mental health, or the left crazy. It's like, but
He channeled something. It was almost
like-
like he used the drugs and kept such a positive intention that he kind of was able to channel a focus through those benzodiazepines when on stage and when faced with tremendous force from all these hit people. He channeled something special. I think that's why he's so important, is the courage that he showed to do all that.
yeah,
on those talk shows.
I think he actually identified a line in the sand. I think it was a real line. I think he actually found I think he drew a line in the sand. I think it was a real line, and he stood it with conviction, and that's what made him go viral.
Yes.
The fact that that line
it's
he
upsetting
took,
that somebody like that. Sorry to
was
interrupt.
bigger than-
It's upsetting that somebody that amazing can be fired from a university. You know, for
Well, I don't think he
right
was
here in
fired. I
Alberta,
think
right by
but-
yeah, I think he got fired for doing that, and he ended up being such a celebrity that it didn't matter. But
yeah.
most professors, there's probably a lot of people that maybe one day will listen.
Well,
to
Rick
this.
Mehta was a professor in
Oh, there's
Canada,
other
I believe, who got fired for sort of taking these stands. Gad Sad, like
I
they
know
couldn't
that one.
fire him,
Yep.
but Gad Sad, they started taking all these action against he was like
and at that
they
point,
took
they're ruining
positions
your
away
life.
from him, like yeah.
So where's the okay? That's great. So you haven't fired him per se, but you're ruining his life. All his people
Mm-hmm.
around him are going to start questioning him because an institution, the university that he works at, starts questioning him. So of course everybody around him will start treating him like a pariah, whether he likes it or not. So that's why it's very unfair. So to kind of get off some of the serious topics, I wanted to ask you, where going to high school. Did you go to a pretty good high school in Toronto, and what was that like?
Yeah, went to a private school.
Okay. Jewish
I wanted to go to a public school, but I wasn't allowed. I come from an upper middle class Jewish family. I never hide the ball there. I was allowed to not. I didn't have to go to a Jewish high school, which was a big victory for me. So my older brother did, I didn't, and then my younger brother didn't even have to go to any private school. So we all consecutive wearing down the will of my parents as we went down. But no, I mean, this high school I went to was interesting. I mean, it was a smaller high school. I was captain of the football team, so that should tell you how small the high school was.
Yeah.
Flag football, but still.
They sometimes have like 4 captains, right?
No, actual captain. But again,
there's
flag
just one
football,
captain on your team.
flag football. Yeah,
I see.
flag football high school. So again,
My
this
high
is a
school
joke
football
of
team had, I think, 6 or 8 captains, and there was 60 people on the team. So that's
like a real football team is a bunch of captains.
Yeah.
And I actually did play. Like one of the reasons is like I knew football, like because I played football as a kid, tackle football. I played real football as a kid.
Yep.
Played defensive back, played a bit of offense too. One year when we really sucked, and I was one of the older
hockey.
right wing.
Right wing. Oh yeah. Oh, you're a righty, eh?
Righty,
I
yeah.
was center, and then I kind of when I got into higher level hockey, I had to play left wing, because
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
I guess the best players get to play center, and I wasn't the best player anymore. So
Yeah, it's and I shot.
when-
Not one of the best, but you shoot right or you shoot left.
yeah. When did you play? When did you quit hockey? How old were you?
After high school, like after competitive hockey, and
So you played all the way up to midget.
Yeah.
You guys call it that there as well.
Yeah, I think not anymore. I think that's been taken away.
Yeah, I
but
guess that
up
is
until
kind
like
of
2 years
that's
ago
a
or
weird one
something,
to
yeah.
call it that, isn't it? Midget.
It's little people. Yeah. Adam,
Little
Kiwi,
people, A, B,
Bantam.
and double A. Little people,
Yeah.
double A.
The hockey team I played for, I'll tell you this, it was not like exclusively Jewish, but like it was the Avenue Road Mighty Ducks. We were like the Jewish team, so like we wouldn't play on Friday nights or Saturday because some of the kids were religious.
Okay.
There was a year where some non-Jewish kids joined us. They got really long, and the coaches were Lebanese and great guys. They stood with us like the whole, like they were there from when we were 8 to like 17.
Yeah.
So we were at their weddings and it was that great. But like it was the we played select, which is like first level competitive.
Yep.
And we were one of the better teams. Like we won a couple of championships. Like we could have played, we could have beaten a bunch of single A teams.
Yep.
But it was the Jewish hockey team that I was on.
Yeah. Canada has such competitive hockey. I like.
Oh yeah, we would. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, we would go to the States once a year for tournaments in Detroit, and
Nice.
we would pretty much be better than all the double A teams.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
I like your backdrop. I wish you could see. I'll maybe send you a picture of the outside of my studio. I might be the only podcaster who built his own studio from the ground up, but it's
That's amazing.
I got a hardwood cladding on the outside of the garage that I recycled myself, and then I put kind of like a barn white paint on it, just like your.
I will say this is my TNT studio, like the National Telegraph. I'm about to start making videos for National Telegraph. This will be the background in that.
Wow, cool.
Use it. Just to use it, like I'm just going to plug the National Telegraph. I'm one of the co-founders and writers, contributors there. So if you want a center-right Canadian news source, look up the National Telegraph. There, plug over.
Yep.
Thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah, my 60 listeners heard it all, I bet.
Yeah, I will come to each one of your houses and make sure you're reading.
So, all right. So that's high school. What made you want to? So as you said, you're taking on the government and all that type of stuff. What happened in your life, if you don't mind me asking?
Yep.
That made you. Obviously, often it's a
what
money,
made you the
sorry,
way
let me
you are?
finish. Let me finish. Often it's like a money thing. Like where, okay, I've made enough money now where I can get out of the crowd in the bottom and start kind of climbing whatever ladder I want. But like, what got you out of the crowd in the bottom? And then now why are you taking this kind of a path in life where you're so interested in politics and you want to be public and those types of things?
So, I mean, there's been a few defining moments here. Yeah.
Sorry if that was too many questions.
Yeah, no. I appreciate it. I think you're doing a great job. And I appreciate the non-serious thing, so I don't have to be like the carbon tax is bad. Like, so I don't have to like. I'm not like I don't have to go through like my memory of like all the names and numbers I memorized.
Yeah, I don't like to talk about those types of things. I think that there's politicians that can do all that. It's more important that us on the internet we guide like what people really think and what people really want, as opposed to what the semantics are.
There is an event in my life in high school that I'm not going to give any details on. That is sort of one of the reasons why I'm here. But like
Candace Owens, I'm gonna start calling
sort of pushed me. But so when I was in comedy, before I left, there was an incident. Mike Ward. So Mike Ward is a comedian in Quebec who was fined $42,000 by the Human Rights Tribunals for cracking a joke about a kid who like.
There's a lot of these cases.
And it's basically, it was a free speech thing. So I'm a person who will stand on hills if it is necessary. Like
nice, man.
I kind of have a bit of a.
That's why I respect you more than anything. I can tell.
Yeah. So I mean,
we're few and far between.
I'm willing to take on, the Muslim Brotherhood. Maybe not Scientology. I think we've learned that even I have my fears.
Yeah.
But I won't even say I was raised because I was not raised to do this. But I have the personality where if I think something is necessary, so, and I don't think there's anyone else that's going to do it, I have to do it. So with the Mike Ward being fined, like in comedy, and I love the comedians and as individual people, and I'm not very popular in the Canadian comedy scene, and I will say. I have my problems with the Toronto comedy scene, but I think Toronto comedians, I think Toronto arts is so one of the most talented places I've seen, like Toronto arts community. Problem is Canadians don't give a shit about any Canadian artists unless they make it in the States. So
no doubt.
There's all I can say, and I have immense respect for them as people, and when you talk to them in individuals. But when you get these comedians in a group, when they come into a group, they are their own worst enemy. They are the biggest joke police people. They're the biggest social justice tyrants. They will attack the very foundations in which what they do stands. And I realized that, like, hey, this Mike Ward thing, like, it's not when I talk to people individually, they're like, but like once you get into a crowd and then once like a few feminists get in the room, then it's like, oh, well, I would like to, like, some comedian literally wrote an article on the Mike Ward thing about, and he used the thing like, I'd like to care about Mike Ward, and like, but like there's climate change and fascism in America. So it's basically like Trump exists and climate change. So we don't even need to talk about free speech. It's like, he's literally being fined $42,000 for a joke.
Yeah,
that's horseshit. It's now $35,000.
Somebody's life.
But
Is it because he made that much from the show or something? Like, did he make a bunch?
No,
from,
it was
they just take away what he made
targeted
from the
discrimination against a person. Someone recorded him.
That's horseshit.
It wasn't even his recorded. Someone recorded a joke about him making a joke about some kid with a disease who sung a song for the Pope, who was a public figure. I remember him being big in the Canadian Vancouver Olympics.
I'm hoping that podcasting cuts through a lot of that. Like how you said that you got to be famous in LA before you can be famous. I hope that podcasting changes.
You're right.
That.
Like I hope. I would encourage a lot of Canadian artists to sort of get an online following, and then these Canadians are like that. If
our population is growing, you know.
They're so self-conscious that you know, if you get an online following, if it's like, oh, if other people like them, then we can say, oh, he's Canadian, right? That's what we love doing. Like, oh, you like, you know,
like talking about So like you're doing what you do. There might be more people that do it where you're from, but here in Saskatchewan, there is nobody. I'm basically the only one who does this. I basically just started, but I'm the only person who does this. So,
and that's another good thing about Canada is like you can fill a good niche. So I mean, I'm going to be a bit harder to go international because like I focus on Canadian politics. I mean, I'll do some American, I'll do some international. Like when the world opens up, like you know, at points in my show, I'll be like, okay, here's how Iran and Saudi Arabian history affects modern day Canadian politics, because I love doing that stuff. It's one of the things where I think I can give people something interesting. I don't think you'll learn anything about what's going on in Turkey right now legitimately from the mainstream media. So I think that's where I have a niche.
I agree.
Again,
the mainstream media is completely not.
It's completely dead, and I think people, you know, Canadians, and one of our better qualities, and I think this, you know, this might come from a bit from the left, and I'm happy to give them credit for this, is we tend to want to sort of know a bit more about the world. We want to be a bit more worldly. We want to be a bit more educated, and we want to seem more like, you know, coherent global citizens. We like the fact that we can travel with our Canadian flags in foreign countries, and everyone likes us because we know that, you know, Prague is the capital of the Czech Republic, and we know this, and so I think that's a very good thing. Yeah. So, you know, explaining why Turkey's going down the road to hell and will soon be the new world supervillain. Yeah. I think there's a Canadian segment that's like, oh, this is interesting. I'd like knowing this. Oh, this Erdogan guy. Oh, he's crazy. Oh, he's legitimately crazy. We should be worrying about this crazy person.
Something I was going to ask you that I had in my list here for a little bit of comedic value now that we're talking about Canada and different areas. Do you know what Cirque du Soleil is, I assume?
Yeah. Started in Montreal.
Yeah. The owner is from Quebec or whatever. Did you hear that Cirque du Soleil went bankrupt?
No, that's too bad. I guess
Coronavirus. That's what caused a lot of it. And then did you hear what happened with their taxes that also made them go bankrupt?
No, what is it?
So Guy Laliberté, he's the owner of Cirque du Soleil. I know about him because I used to watch him on, and I knew he was crazy. This is how, and this is a story that probably I'll only even have found, but I used to watch him on High Stakes Poker, and he used to play poker for $1 million. He would sit down at the table with $1 million, and he was very good at poker. And one time he beat a guy in a hand for $600,000 each, so $1.2 million pot, and he gave the guy his money back on camera. So I knew this guy was crazy, and
I would not do that.
So he went to.
Do you know how many lawsuits I could fund? Like I could take on with $600,000. That's another 10 to 12 Muslim Brotherhood members I could actively take on and get out of Canadian politics. Oh, man. If I had $600,000, like Omar Al-Ghabra would be like out of politics.
Yeah, you should email him, see if he'll give you some money.
And I can name Omar Al-Ghabra because he's actually elected official, so he can't come after me. He will eventually, but screw you.
So here's the crux of the story is he went to space, and he called it a business expense, and so then eventually he got sued by the tax lawyers, and that certainly didn't help his company. But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny, so I wanted to drop that in there with all the more serious talk. So I guess so it was that experience. I think I got lost in all the talking there. What got you into this politics?
Tends to happen with me. Yeah, what got me into politics? Yeah, I mean, it's sort of pathologically, I'm sort of inclined to this. Like, so you know, there are some few life events where I say, okay, here, this free speech stuff. But I mean, if I'm to be honest with myself, like I'm pathologically like I like the sound of my own voice. Again, I did comedy, so I have no problem, you know, saying like, everyone pay attention to me for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Like I'm pretty honest with that. Like, you know, there's
that's honesty. That's true honesty in my opinion.
there's a slight, you can, to be charitable to me, would call it fearlessness.
Yeah. But some people,
the honest is just like,
you can be smart, but if you have no courage, we got to have people who are smart and also courageous. Like, if you want to call it narcissism, whatever, you got to get out in front of the camera. There's got to be some smart people out there.
Listen, in whatever we do, all comedy arts, there's a degree of narcissism in all politics. The fact that I'm able to admit it, I think, is I can mitigate it. But I see myself as someone with the ability to do something. I have the ability to, I'm great at math. I can memorize a bunch of numbers. Yep. I can memorize a bunch of names.
Me too.
I have a general interest. My memory, if I'm interested in foreign politics, I'm really good at putting these names and people together.
Yep.
It's kind of weird how my memory works.
What was your favorite subject in high school? I forgot to ask you that while we were talking about high school. Was it math?
Data management was the easiest because I was just numbers, just done. I was able to finish those tests in 15 minutes and walk out of class. I got a 98% in that. Misplaced a negative in one test and didn't get perfect.
Still remember it. I love it.
Still remember it.
I used to be able to finish a math test, and it could have 100 questions on it. And me and my buddy Brady, who's one of the guys I used to have a lot of good debates with, we would go over the entire test, every bit of it. And we were the same thing. Got the ridiculous grades.
But I think math would maybe be number one because I was the best at it. You never need to study for it. Yep. If you just intuitively understand it, it's lots of logic. Not so much English with the grammar and whatever. I mean, I've always had a bit of mild dyslexia. But yeah, I'd say math anywhere if it was interesting, I could do it. Yeah, math would probably be number one because again, it was just you don't have to study. It's easy.
Exactly. You just got to understand it and then move forward, right?
Yeah. I say it works the same way. It's like my memory, and I realized from my memory of global politics, I can my international politics brag is I was the first person in Canada and North America to write a article about Qasem Soleimani when he died. That was when World War III was going to start. That was the Iranian terrorist general that Trump killed.
Okay.
So I was the only one. I was the first one because I saw it was trending on certain parts of Arabic Twitter. I'm plugged in. I'm like, wait, if Soleimani died, that's big. It's Soleimani. And I'm looking up and I'm like, wait, this Hezbollah is saying Soleimani's dead. So I'm like, okay, I'm writing this. Told the guys, I'm like, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah.
But I know Qasem Soleimani, and I know people are important, but there's things I can't I don't know the name of the Iraqi prime minister.
About that now, about Trump doing that.
They're wrong. I wrote all the articles, and everything I said was right. On Qasem Soleimani. But I don't know who the Iraqi prime minister is, and I will look him up every month or so. I have no idea who he is, and I never will. Because the Iraqi prime minister is not important. The way my brain works is these people are players. Okay, so you have this guy's the self-defense minister of Israel. This guy is the minister of whatever in Iran. This guy's in Saudi Arabia. I can memorize it. But there's people who actually don't matter. The prime minister of Iraq does not matter. Iraq's not a country. The current president of Yemen, he's a proxy. He doesn't matter. I'll never be able to remember his name. I look it up. So it's things where I'll know ministers in certain governments because they actually play a role, but I can't memorize your name. It's because you don't actually do anything. So Iraq's not a country, so I don't even know who the prime minister is.
Yeah, I want your opinion on this. I sometimes think that presidents don't matter. Period. I think that they're essentially more
they matter less than people think. One of the things I was telling people in 2016 is Donald Trump can be president, and the scary thing is you're gonna realize it doesn't matter.
He's
the system is designed that
He's a guy who takes shit. From the more I've watched all this, and I reflect on George Bush and the way people treated him, and then people couldn't attack Obama so much because he was the first black president. But the more I reflect on all these presidents, I realize that they are essentially just the person who gets put in the way of all the insults that come flying in from the dumb
There
masses.
is stuff that they do, and you can talk about use of executive power and it needing to be curbed, but especially in America, the president isn't as powerful as people think they are. I mean, God bless Thomas Jefferson and James Madison because they realized, all right, we're going to make a built country. There's going to be a lot of people. We have to realize at some point Donald Trump's going to be in charge of this thing, right? You play the odds. Eventually Donald Trump's going to come. So how do we create a country that if Donald Trump doesn't come and get in charge, the thing doesn't blow up? And this is one of the hard things people have understanding about America, and this is the things that frustrates me with the moral relativism. And I'll get controversial because I'll tie it directly to slavery right now, and this is the answer to a lot. I mean, this is what we're dealing with currently in the world.
Okay.
What makes America great, and what people have to understand is they made a choice, and Thomas Jefferson, as an actual wanting to abolish slavery in his own writings, they made a choice, and they realized if we create the power for someone to abolish slavery like that, the whole thing will fall apart. Because that's a gun. That is the power. Because the power to abolish slavery is also the power for someone to unilaterally create slavery. And it's unfortunate. So if there was the power to abolish slavery like that in America, then Donald Trump could reinstitute slavery, right? Donald Trump could do whatever he wants right now.
Yeah. That's exactly
right?
my point,
and that's
too.
a bad thing.
Is
like,
that
I don't think Trump is as bad as people say he is, but I don't want him with unlimited power. Like, he is a crazy person who says crazy shit.
It's a democracy.
all the time.
Yeah, but it's
Right?
it's a democracy. Yeah, see, so
It's not even a democracy. It's a representative democracy.
Yeah,
so
he
the
has
problem
to
is
do what
they,
everybody, because he's got to keep his support.
Yeah, and
So-
what they did is they created a system that they said, okay, we're gonna write into law all men created equal. We're gonna create the framework that people can use, that the system can use, if there's enough states and whatever, that they could use for the power to then, as a people, abolish slavery. But giving someone the gun to create the abolish slavery is a dangerous thing. And the historical equivalent to this is the Haitian Revolution, which happened around the same time. You can argue the Haitian Revolution was a more noble revolution, right? There was worse discrimination. They openly said, we shouldn't be having these classes based on race. The white people aren't here, and then you have rich black people, you have mixed race people. This is all bad. We must abolish all of this. We must create a society where everyone is equal. But because they gave the person in charge the power to create the society where everyone's equal, they created this gun of power, and that was immediately corrupted. Because then it was corrupt, it was used for personal gain, and then within decades the thing fell apart because someone was given this power. And I'm saying you can argue, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, there were more noble ideas being thrown around. Like, you can make those arguments. I mean, you can make counter arguments, and you can look at John Locke and Thomas Paine and all that, like making the arguments for the American Revolution. But what America is it was the country that didn't create the gun. It didn't create that ultimate weapon. And it's really hard because you would like it if in 1776 Thomas Jefferson got his way and made a great speech, and then John Adams was like, yeah, and then John Quincy Adams was like, yeah, and then they abolished slavery, and then and then everyone realized that Abigail Adams really did play a more important role in the forming of the country than most people think, and then we had a woman on the currency. Like, that would have been great, but that's not how human beings work, and if the country was created that way, it would have fallen apart. And people kind of miss that lesson, and it's a hard lesson to learn because people had to be slaves for 90 years, and that's a moral abomination, and it's something we're struggling with now, but I think needs to be addressed.
Yeah, for sure. So this one here, I wanted to ask kind of right in the middle, like, so is there anything that you're talking about right now that you'd like to? What is some of the biggest problems that you wanna talk about? Like, what are you talking about on some of your most recent shows? And like, even though I've watched them, but like, what's the biggest thing that you want to talk about right now that needs to be fixed in Canada?
It needs to be fixed in Canada. I mean, we're dealing with sort of these. I mean, if we're looking at this, it's like the Black Lives Matter racial fallout.
Yes, because we got all that social unrest right now, and it's kind of coming from America, but it's also in Canada.
Yeah, this goes to a couple things. Yeah, that I think are bullshit. One, okay. Like, if I'm going to say this to the left, okay, you got to pick one. Pick one here. Either we are morally superior to the Americans. The Americans are so stupid. Ha 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 ha. They're racist. They like slaves. They fly Confederate flags. They don't have health care. They're so stupid, and we're much better than them. Okay. Either that, or you can't have it. You can't have that, and then every time a black person in America gets shot, we go in Canada, well, we're even more racist here too, because we're so evil too. We can't, so every time someone in America gets shot, we can't go, oh, we're so better, Americans are so racist, but then also go, well, Canada's even worse, so now we need laws again. So you can't have both. Pick one.
Yeah, we can't just follow them.
Pick one. Either you're morally superior to the Americans, or everything, we're actually worse than Canada. You can't do both. Pick one. Yeah. You're driving me crazy.
Exactly.
But
totally
the other thing is, when we import America's issues, which drives me up the fucking wall. When we import America's issues into Canada, it drives me crazy. And I'm not going to ever say there's no discrimination in Canada. Like, I've talked about, John Graves Simcoe, founder of Upper Canada, and Toronto was the first abolitionist. Our city was founded in 1792, our province 1792. 1793, he enacted the law Act Against Slavery. So, that I'm not going to, there's great, but I'm not going to say there was no racism. There were 7 slaves when Toronto was found, but more came in from the States. We're not going to say there was no racism, but if we're going to deal with, like, Canada's racism and our past, like, I'm not saying there's no anti-black racism, but if we're talking about the number one thing in Canada, like natives. Like, we really got to talk about, like, what are we doing? We got the Indian Act. This is ridiculous. The reserve system is clearly broken and corrupt. Like, can we do anything about this? Like, we have actual vicious racist policies put against them. We have government policies that were intended to be kind, but because they're the government, have screwed them even worse. Like, the kids taken away from the 90s was like, and all this stuff is like, well, we passed laws saying, well, Indigenous kids need the same, care and opportunities as people in non-Indigenous places. And you're like, okay, yeah, I agree with the sentiment, but when you put this into law, people have to realize, like, this is one of the flaws in, like take away Indigenous for a second, urban versus rural. One of the things in rural communities have to understand is you'll never be able to get all the same services as an urban community. Okay? Yep. The healthcare will never be as good in a rural community as an urban community for a lot of things. You're out in the forest in rural Saskatchewan, you trip, knock your head, you're bleeding out, you get an aneurysm, and your buddy sees you, odds are you're going to die. Odds are you're going to die. Like,
and it's not the government's fault.
It's not the government's fault, but, like, it's going to, like, someone's going to have to take half an hour to find you in the forest, another half an hour to take you to hospital, you're dead within 40 minutes.
Yep.
Sorry, that happens, you trip on the street in Toronto, you're having an aneurysm, we can get you to St. Mary's, you'll probably live.
Yep.
Now, is it unfair that urban communities now have better health care than rural communities? What must we do to make sure that rural Canadians, if they trip and have an aneurysm, won't be in the same situation as urban communities? There's nothing you can do, realistically.
Nothing you can do, yeah.
And this used to be one of the realities of the medical community. Now, the social justice movement is sort of changing that, and people going crazy. But then you take this thing to sort of rural communities, where, okay, these Indigenous kids have to have the same school opportunities and whatever as kids over here. Well, now you've created a system where if the opportunities are below the urban standard because you have a rural setting and you have another hurdle, the fact that it's a reserve system and they have a second government to go through, right? If it's not the exact same standards as it is here in, like, a private school in Toronto, well, then we just take the kids out of the home and put them somewhere else. Well, now you're taking thousands of kids away from their parents. Like, now, like, that's, the 60 Scoop was evil racism.
Residential schools all over again.
Yeah, the 60 Scoop was like, stupid savages, yoink, right? And the 90s Scoop was like, oh my God, we're so racist and everything must be perfect, so yoink, like,
that was totally the 90s Scoop.
Yeah.
Have you heard of, do you know who Dan Carlin is?
Yes, I like him.
His great podcast.
Hardcore History.
Yeah, for sure. I was just making sure.
The World War I Blueprint to Armageddon. It's like 24 hours long if you listen to all 6.
Okay, I'll listen to that one.
Fascinating. I loved it.
What's your favorite podcast? Do you have one, or?
I'm weird because, like, I if I'm listening to a podcast, like, I can't be doing something else. Like, I could, working out is one thing, but, like, I can't
doing other stuff.
Like, I can't do other stuff, and, like, it's like if I'm listening and absorbing. So
what kind of workouts do you like to do?
Nothing too crazy. Like, I'll I'll do push-ups and have some weights and like.
Do you do yoga at all?
No.
No. Okay.
Yoga leads to communism. No, I
Okay. All right. So what? This will be a weird one. I guess you said you were a stand-up comic, but what kind of jobs? Did you have any other jobs? Like, what kind of weird
I was
jobs
a tour
you
guide.
had? Like, I worked at as a busboy.
In university, I'd make my money in the summers. I owned a barbecue cleaning company, Eco Clean Barbecue Services. We use no harmful chemicals and all our products are biodegradable.
Okay.
Which is, one, you don't need harmful chemicals to clean a barbecue. Use an angle grinder. And 2, you just have the soap that you wash the barbecue with at the end be biodegradable. So all your soap is biodegradable. Boom. Yeah. See? When you call things green and say dumb shit like this is how companies take advantage. I did that to you. So when I say, like, the green movement, like,
marketing
comes from experiences. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. You ever watch Mad Men? What kind of shows do you like?
I never watched Mad Men. I would probably like it. I'm more of the whatever. I mean, like, if you want to know, like, one of my interests, like, epic fantasy. I will read 1,000-page fantasy books.
Interesting.
So Game of Thrones, I read the books. I love them. I think that season 8 of Game of Thrones is an act of domestic terrorism. Put that on the list.
Okay.
But what are my interests? Like, I'll read fantasy books. The Stormlight Archive is my favorite series.
Have you seen? Do you obviously? So I'm going to start simple. You've seen Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
You've seen
I've read the books, though.
You've seen The Hobbit. Have you seen Ashlad?
I've not seen Ashlad.
Okay, that's like the Norwegian Lord of the Rings. Check that one out. I think it's on Amazon Prime. There's actually 2.
Amazon Prime. Okay.
Yeah, 2 movies.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So reading epic fantasy, I like watching sci-fi more than reading it, and I like that. I mean, I would love if they make the fantasy books into movies, I guess too.
Mhm.
They are making the Wheel of Time as an Amazon Prime series. I'm
Yeah.
excited for that.
Yeah.
That's another thing I do. So yeah. So I mean, my interests are sports. I'm great at watching football, hockey. Like if you want to watch sports with someone, I'm a great person to watch sports with. I can add to your sports watching experience. Like I come from a family of I have two brothers. It was 4 men. My mom was just like working on the computer. She was just like typing away. We were watching football on Sundays. So we're great. We're all great at watching football. But like my personal interest is like I'll read fantasy novels that are like 1,000 pages. And if it's a good story, like I don't care if it's like 15 books and like they're all 1,000 pages. If it's a good story, it's a good story.
Nice.
Like I can get into it.
I like that genre as well, but I'm not a big reader. I more like to listen to audiobooks. So I mean, I guess that's the same as reading nowadays. But I preserve my reason for it is I preserve my eyes. That's what I always tell people. Because whenever I find that reading is like, and whenever I see people that read a lot, they always have glasses or. I feel like it's kind of hard on your eyes,
I have better than 20/20 vision, so
there you go.
It's different from me. So maybe it's there's a confounding variable.
Yep.
I like a book, like a physical book. Like one of the hard parts of quarantine is like getting the books on Kindle because you couldn't go to the bookstore and like get a book.
Yeah.
So then I started just ordering physical because I read Joe Abercrombie's The First Law series, which I really liked, but I had to read it on Kindle, which really took the sort of I just like having a book, and like the reason I don't listen to audiobooks is I think a lot of them are great. It's just like it's the same thing for me as reading. Like I can't like listen to an audiobook and do something else, and then I won't pay attention.
Do you feel like you absorb it more when you read it yourself as opposed to listen to somebody else read it?
If
like if
I'm lying down and I'm paying attention to them reading it to me, it's the same as reading.
That's
but if I have my
feel.
computer open, I absorb it more as like me reading.
Oh yeah.
I love holding a book. So then so the 2 series I've read this quarantine are First Law and then the Lightbringer series. And I like Lightbringer better because maybe because I had physical books to read, but I thought both were great.
Oh yeah. So I was going to ask you earlier because I don't actually know who this is, even though I should. Can you explain who Jessica Yanev is?
Oh,
actually,
okay.
Before you go into that, can we take a quick pause?
Yeah.
I'm just going to pause for 1 second. I'll be back in 20 seconds.
All right, guys, please watch Stephen Jackson's stuff. Please sponsor him. This episode is sponsored by the concept of friendship. Friendship. When you distill the blood of your enemies and sacrifice them to Satan, you will get more friendship. And I'm not even sure if he's going to edit this out, so he'll probably will edit this out, but there's a compulsive part of me that feels the need to entertain the masses. So I will just let you know that 1, reading is cool. 2, Kindles are for fools. And 3, I actually like the concept of audiobooks. Just can't personally do them. Personally, just can't do them. I mean, this better get edited out, or else this is just going to look silly at this point. And if you have stayed around, then you win a free Muslim. Yes. Call Amazon Prime Direct, and you will get yourself 1 free Muslim. He knows all of the Quran. Could be a Shi. Most of the Hadiths. So get your free Muslim today. Just call 1-800-267-2001 Alarm Force. I don't know why I said that. That's just a common jingle in Toronto.
Okay. Sorry about that. Wow, it seems like you kept talking most of the time. That's a professional at work right there, people.
Yeah, I kept it. I entertained. And probably minimal lawsuits. Don't worry. Don't ever watch that back.
That's been one of the problems I've been having with the addition of the beers to the podcast. Is right around an hour and a half. The guest and I always have to take a pause for a bathroom break. So
there you go.
It creates problems. So
it's the mental will.
Yes, exactly, and it's hard though. So Jessica Yanev, who is this, or did you explain that already?
Okay, so Jessica Yanev is my rule. I did not explain this. So like in life, I do have a Jessica Yanev rule, and this means that in law or in rules, like if you leave a loophole in for bad behavior, you will see sociopaths take advantage of it. And Jessica Yanev is a Canadian transgender activist in Vancouver. So when this Bill C-16 was passed, Jessica Yanev took advantage of these new anti-discrimination laws. Jessica Yanev was born Jonathan Yanev, and has many accusations of child sexual abuse, like arranged a naked swim for LGBTQ teens, and lots of creepy behavior people posted. But Jessica Yaniv, what they did is this is what Megan Murphy, if you know her, she got banned off of Twitter because she called Jessica Yaniv a man. That's what actually that was the instigating thing. So Yaniv, what Yaniv did is Yaniv would look for victim claims. So Yaniv would call up all these different female waxing salons. So Yaniv has a penis and testicles. Yaniv is a man.
Yep.
But Yaniv claims that he is a woman. So he would call different waxing clinics, most of them owned by like immigrants, and say, "Oh, will you give me a wax? Are you transgender inclusive?" Right? And because it's a different technique to wax men and women, and sometimes women have different religious beliefs. Like she sued a bunch of Yaniv sued a bunch of religious Muslims who would be like, "No, religiously I can't touch another man. I think of you as a man." Like, again, like I totally support the right of religious Muslims, Jews, Sikhs, or Christians to say, "No, I can't touch a man. Like you're." Like, you know, I think trans women and trans people should, be treated equally and have rights, and we should be kind to them.
Yep.
But when you ask someone to touch your genitals, sorry, like you're actually genetically a man, and this person has a religious right to not touch your penis. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I can't believe I didn't look into this more. This really is a problem for sure. Yeah. This type of loopholing.
Yeah.
And where I don't like that at all.
To basically abuse the human rights tribunals in BC, take different women, ruining their lives, making them pay legal fees. Listen, I know it's just like, filing lawsuits against people, like if they're going to fight you, like it's thousands of dollars. Like, I know this. Like, I knew.
Well, that's where part of my thing comes in, because I know we were talking about legal system earlier, but that's where my side of it comes in, is my issues with the legal system. You were talking more about civil and Supreme Court and that type of stuff that us commoners could never understand. But I'm gonna
go back to that one specific statement, but I'm gonna let you continue.
My problems with it is more residential tenancy court, it's called, which comes in a lot in my life because that was how I got out of the crowd in the bottom, is through rentals and things like that. Mm-hmm. And the residential tenancy courts are broken. They're broken. There's these mediation boards that are in between the courts, and so you don't go straight to court with something as small as residential tenancy stuff, $500 here and there. So you'll have a mediation hearing, and that person, whoever hears that, essentially writes up the document that the judge sees, even if you appeal it. I had once where I had a tenant with no proof whatsoever say that I broke his couch. He had no receipts for the couch. He had no nothing. He had no proof I broke the couch. It's just a couch. And I knew the kid because I was his friend. A lot of my tenants are friends. So he told me, before he moved in, he told me this couch is broken. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He sued me for this broken couch and won. I appealed it and he won. And then he seized my bank accounts and took the couch was like a $300 couch, and he seized $1,000 from one of my bank accounts and $1,000 from another bank account, which was all these fees you have to pay for seizures and then recollection of the money that they seize. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. You're not the first person to tell me a story like this.
Yeah. So I've had times where I won too. I'll explain. Maybe I'll go into that one. I've talked about it on other podcasts, but yeah, there's no recourse. You can go to the judge and be like, okay, so there's no evidence here of me breaking this couch, so that's why I'm here appealing it. That's why I paid $110 to be in front of you right now and to bring in this fellow. Please look at the evidence. There's no evidence that I broke this couch. And they don't. The appeal doesn't work. To me, the system has to be broken when they get it wrong. So that's my issue with smaller claims court. And then I had a larger claims court with the municipality. We had a cabin. So we live in Saskatchewan. Pretty much everybody here has cabins. So we had a municipality, which is our smaller rural governments, come in and say, hey, you got some structural issues with your cabin. And this is largely what maybe led into me going into structural engineering. But they said, oh, your cabin's falling apart. And I said, no, it's not. And we ended up going through some legal processes, and I won that. But, I still am very upset with the legal system, and I don't think they ever get it right. They might sometimes, but when
But yeah, you're right. Like there's a lot of ideology going in, and there's a lot of sort of reflexive, I guess, like underdog preference, you could say.
That's a great way to put it too, because that's actually how I put it in my earlier podcast when I talked about this, is that I do want them. I get it that the guy that they ended up giving the money to for pretending I broke his couch, like I want them to look out for the underdog. So ideally, in the overall, the aggregate, I see how the judge's theory, the system's theory is working, and I do want that. But sometimes the person who isn't the victim might be right, and it's kind of
it's
annoying.
like, do you want to run the legal system off of like equality or equity, like we must be a force of equity or a force of principle?
Yeah,
right? Do we enforce principle? And I think that's something that we're struggling with as a society outside the legal system. Although I'd say the legal system is probably the number one.
Well, because there's no this
problem
extends into the fact that there's no recourse for, let's say, people who want to collect social services who maybe shouldn't.
Yeah.
This is in the same gray area where there's not enough time for our legal administrators to actually look through all the details of these things and make a proper decision as, okay, like, there's no proof you have actual depression, you're just lazy, sorry, we can't support you, can't give you $1,000 a month. That's
something that we'll have to deal with as a society very soon. I'm just going to backtrack to comedy center and just one of the philosophers I actually live by if we're going to do this. You said, like, oh, you're talking about the Supreme Court and things that the common person can't understand. One of the reasons why I do what I do, and one of my fundamental beliefs in life, is I fully reject the common man can't understand this concept
That's what
narrative.
They want us to believe, though.
It's what they want you to believe. I hate it. I hate it beyond all belief. It's the reason Trudeau got away with SNC-Lavalin. And one of the things I firmly believe, and one of the things I try and do in my show, and one of the things I try and articulate, one of the things I try and say is, like, you might be the common person. You might have gone to a trade school. You might have never thought of yourself as a brilliant high school student. But you're a human being. You're a Canadian. You have the capacity, if explained properly to you, to understand SNC-Lavalin scandal. You have the ability, if explained, to understand Middle Eastern politics. You have the understanding to understand the intricacies in Canadian politics. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be.
We all need to find our confidence.
Is like, I think I have the ability to, one, talk about like why I do this, is I actually have the ability to be a bit coherent, right? I have a background in public speaking. I have a decent memory. But I actually, and another thing in why I do is that I fundamentally believe that if I explain the history of Iran and Saudi Arabia from the 1970s and what they believe, I can actually give you names and context where you, as someone who might have no interest, you might not know anything about Islam, you might not know anything about global politics, but I think I can explain Middle Eastern Cold War politics to you in a way that you say, oh, actually, I understood that. Okay, I get it, because Middle Eastern politics is one of the things that we like. Oh, it's so complicated. It's so complicated. It's so like, no, it's not. It's really not. Here are the factors. Here are the main beliefs. The Middle East or South East, they're different than North America. It works differently. So it's not easy, but it's not so deathly difficult you can't understand. SNC-Lavalin wasn't this high scale, uber complex scheme. Like, no, the average Canadian can understand this if it is explained to them. Just the media says, oh, it's complicated, and it's a very complicated thing, so now we're going to have some experts to discuss the intricacies without discussing the basics, so when people are lost, we can then say, oh, well, Trudeau is so complicated, and then move on, right? When the Conservatives have a scandal, we go through all different lengths to explain it, right? Like the Trump-Russia thing. It was so convoluted, it made no sense, it was ultimately a lie, but it was explained to the people, right? Trump bad, Trump and Putin, like, but this SNC-Lavalin thing, which is so blatant, it's so complicated.
Let's cut out all the competition. Just like have a seminar over in somewhere that they can't get to, and then have the bidders only able to bid if they came to this seminar that cost $25,000 to get to, or whatever. I don't know all the details about it, but I know that they cut out all the competition. They didn't allow competitive bidders, because I do work in that industry. Actually, precisely, I actually work in that industry as an engineer. I actually put together bids and those types of things for jobs, and I can exactly see what you're talking about in how they abused that system and made sure that the smaller guys who can undercut prices and beat SNC-Lavalin, just keep them away. Have a mixer over here.
In the scandal, like, you can explain it, and I absolutely hate. I will never stand for anyone saying that any Canadian with it, like, maybe there's someone who's severely on the autism spectrum and like low functioning. They might not understand the SNC-Lavalin thing, but I refuse to accept the fact that if I go into a restaurant in Saskatchewan, I come to visit you, and we see the waitress, I refuse to accept that waitress isn't capable of understanding, how the world works.
And I agree with you. And I think that's exactly the power of podcasts. And I think that's why what we all need to do, is just get our information and make our own decisions, and we all just need to have more confidence in our own abilities to evaluate the information and things like that. Although I'm not promoting a lot of these people that get all their information from Facebook and then go out there.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be critical. Like,
if you're
fake news is out there.
Intention,
like here, I'm going to send something like here's my view on life. And this might aggravate the QAnon people, but listen, I'm under the impression that everything I read is QAnon until I can prove otherwise.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes like, I just say, okay, what's this conspiracy theory? Like sometimes I'm looking at the Wall Street Journal, like, okay, what's this QAnon nonsense? And I go in with a hostile mentality of, right? And like, okay, let's see what information, like I always read different sources and different stories. Okay, what checks out, what doesn't, and then what's logical to assume. So, I just assume everything is a QAnon Pizzagate conspiracy until I can prove otherwise, and that goes from random internet trolls to mainstream media articles.
So
that's my
can I have a
position.
short blurb of what you think? What do we got here? I was hoping to get a short blurb on just what you think. Do you think that the social unrest going on right now in America is like more severe than we've seen in the past? And what do you think led to it? Like, what do you think?
Okay, short answer, yes. And
it's worse, okay.
Short answer, yes, it's worse than we've seen in the past. And I see it as a confluence of a lot of things. Like, one, okay, we can talk about this legitimacy, but I mean, the biggest thing is, like, we have to remember, we've all been locked down for months. So a lot of this is just people have been home, had nothing to do. It happened during coronavirus. It's extraordinary times. No one really George Floyd happened. There was nothing else in the news. People had nothing to do.
Yeah.
So it just became the news because nothing new had happened for months, and people were stuck at home. Yeah. And this is an expression of anger, and a lot of people are just angry at being home, and it's hard times. So
So that
a lot of it is sort of like pent up. Just let me out,
Yep.
let out into that.
Yeah, and then how that affects the economic side of things too.
Yeah.
Because
the other thing is,
all the economic stress is what, and then people being able to wear masks when they're out in public like that and having it be the norm because of the virus, I think is ultimately what also added fuel to the flame in that they can anonymously go around spray painting and smashing and stuff.
It's that's
whatever
another thing
happened
of
to
like
mass immunity? Why are we wearing masks? I thought that we all wanted
so
to
I mean
get
I mean
the flu.
there are some studies that show masks will reduce transmission of diseases if you wear them. This whole like they destroy oxygen flow, like okay, that's pseudoscientific nonsense. Like you can definitely breathe enough suitable oxygen in mask, and then you take it off when you get home, like, and then it's not a long-term thing. Like that's the most ridiculous argument I ever heard. And like there have been studies of like there was two when Missouri opened up, there was two hairdressers at a Missouri salon who got COVID-19, but they were wearing masks the entire time, so none of the people they were dealing with got them. Like if you're both wearing masks out in public, like masks makes when you're indoors with someone you don't spend a lot of time with, and you wear a mask, that's legitimate. Reduces the transmission of diseases. I get that, but the problem, the problem with the coronavirus so much is, one, the government has completely destroyed its credibility over the years with all the nonsense and all the lies they've told to us. There are also lies they told to us on coronavirus. So when the government was actively repeating Chinese propaganda,
I don't think that the credibility of the internet or of the government can ever be destroyed. I wanted to say that because I think that their intention.
But eroded. This is where I disagree. So one of the problems with Patty Hajdu and Theresa Tam and Justin Trudeau repeating Chinese propaganda from the WHO when it was obvious is it destroys trust in the government. So when you say for months that there's no need to wear a mask, then people are going to not trust you when you say all of a sudden now masks work, which is what we've known for a while. And then the worst one is we don't need to shut down travel from hotspots of disease. It will do nothing. It's like, no virologist would ever say that. I don't need a medical degree. I don't even need to know any doctors to know that's nonsense. But do you think that we should be
acting differently in different seasons, let's say? So, because don't we, during June, July, and August, and even September,
I made this argument.
Don't we all want to be getting as much of COVID as we can?
So I made this argument, and I think it's sometime May 20-something. Like, once it started getting nice in May, I made the argument, like, time to open up right now.
Yeah, me too.
And this is one of the problems is, like, the government wasn't being honest with. If the government had been honest, like, hey, listen, what we're going to do is we're working on opening up. We trust you, but when we open up, we're just going to ask that you all wear masks inside around each other. When you go into a store, just wear a mask, and we'll be able to open up sooner. But this wasn't the rhetoric coming out. It was like, it's spreading. We can't do anything. Everyone just hide in a hole, do nothing. So if Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau were like, hey, we face some significant economic damages if we don't do that. So what we're going to do is We're going to flatten the curve for about 2 months here. Okay, and then we're going to start to try and push to reopen. In order to reopen, though, if you guys want to get out there, you want to do something, we're going to need you as Canadians to do your part, wear a mask indoors, and if you can, wear gloves, and then we can all get back to life sooner rather than later. But they weren't saying that. It was an all or nothing. Like, it was like, we all have to be locked down, so the incentives were perverse. So being outside is good. So I'll like spend some time outside just to get, vitamin D and fresh air. It's good. And we have numbers that the disease doesn't transmit as well outside as it does inside, and it makes sense because so when a bunch of 20 to 30 somethings go outside to a park and they're all around each other in a park, that's actually fine. That's not a big risk for COVID. So it was, but people were getting fined for that. Like, you couldn't sit down in a park. That was a $1,000 fine. So now we had a sense where the incentives were perverse because the government wasn't treating us reasonably. They had sort of made the rules in February when everyone was under panic and never adjusted them. So if you think of sort of the game theory here where, okay, if you, in Toronto, you would get an $1,000 ticket for sitting down outside. Like, you have to keep moving. Which means, if you're outside, it's actually a good thing, right? And there's a crowd of people, right? The responsible thing to do in a pandemic is, maybe you'll sit down away from the crowd of people. But if you sit down away from the crowd of people, and sitting down is illegal, well, then the cops are more likely to come to you and give you an $1,000 ticket. So what would I rather risk? Would I rather risk an $1,000 ticket sitting there, or would I rather go sit down in the crowd because I just want to sit down outside right now and go into the crowd because they're less likely to give me a ticket if I'm around all these people?
Did you get any tickets?
No, I didn't get any tickets, but this is where the incentive becomes perverse. My lawyer got a ticket for having a family barbecue. The cops came into the backyard.
Crazy.
But like, this is what I was saying with like the incentives being so perverse. We weren't taking the
And then
we were
the
taking
George
the
Floyd video
seriously, but not seriously.
And then the George Floyd video is ultimately what kind of was the activation energy which exploded and caused all of these riots, along with everybody being
I can understand
stressed.
the anger there on the George Floyd thing. Like, I watched the video, and I've watched the precipitating videos. Horrible video. I'm on the guys, cut it out with the second-degree murder. You're never going to get higher than third-degree murder.
Boom.
So I think they're overcharging him.
Yep. I agree, and I hope that doesn't end up making him get free or something, and then causing more riots.
Yeah, because
go with third-degree murder.
So yeah, go with third-degree murder. You're not going to be able to prove intent.
Yeah, you're not. There's no. You can't prove intent.
I was horrified by the video. It was the third worst police killing video I've seen.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I've seen worse too. Yeah.
Yeah. The Daniel Shaver one where he's killed in the hallway. That's haunting.
Yep.
Laquan McDonald just actively walking away, shot in the back. Those are the gold and silver medal of police killing. This is like the bronze medal. It's horrible.
Yep. And the colors weren't all black on those ones. Interestingly enough, for your first and second too.
Yeah.
So.
My gold medal one isn't the black guy, but
exactly.
And this one of the things I say here is the conversation. This goes, if you watch football, the Kaepernick thing is like, okay, so we have to have a conversation of like, police brutality is bad, and we all agree police brutality is bad, right? And it happens, and we don't like it, right?
Yeah, but so that doesn't mean we should all hate police.
Exactly. Okay, so the conversation we need to have is like, we all agree police brutality is bad. In order this conversation, we have to understand, like, I'll play lefty, you play righty. I have to agree that, okay, you think police brutality is bad, and I think police brutality is bad, and I grant that you as a right-wing person also think police brutality is bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the second thing is, police brutality is wrapped up in systemic racism. This is a conversation we actually need to be having, and we've skipped this conversation. It's how much of police brutality is racism, and how much of it is bad policing and bad training and things that can be fixed from a legislative police level. Right? That's the conversation we need to have. Instead, what the left did in the whole Kaepernick thing was, well, no. Police brutality happens because the police are systemically racist and corrupted in general. And the reason they're systemically racist is America itself is systemically racist.
That's an ad hominem attack.
This is how we get to just defund the police, right? The police are racist because they're part of a racist system.
And that's what I agree to, yeah.
Right? And the answer is, listen, the police aren't 0% racist. As a right-wing person, I'm willing to admit that there is probably some racially motivated police brutality. I'm willing to admit that. It's not 100%. 100% of police aren't racist. 100% of police brutality isn't because of racism, but it's not 0%.
Yeah.
It's not 0% either.
Yeah.
What it is, I don't know. I'm willing to talk to you and figure it out. I'm willing to listen to the experiences of black Americans who've had unfair dealings with the police. And I'm willing to, but like, we're not going to ever solve this problem because realistically it's not 100%. Some of this problem is like actual structure of police. And the first videos I made because of George Floyd was about how how to prosecute this. Should there be changes in the legal system that make it so it's easier to prosecute police? Because it's impossible to prosecute police for first-degree murder or even second-degree murder under the current system.
Yeah.
And I was
wonder
making
if that knee on the neck thing was an actual rule. Like, is that how they're supposed to do it, or what?
I don't know. I've seen like a bunch of different things. Like it happens all over the world.
It does.
It's kind of a thing. Like
I've seen
I don't really mind someone putting their knee on a assailant's neck for like 30 seconds to subdue them if they're resisting.
Yeah.
But it's like, when it's 9 minutes and you're 9 minutes, no, you're killing him. Like,
still, but
understand
was the breathing? Yeah. Actually, maybe I don't even want to bring that up. But was the breathing constriction caused by the fentanyl, or was it caused by the whatever?
But this is again why it has to be third-degree murder, because it's so easy to prove that intent didn't happen, because they're gonna find high on fentanyl, high on methamphetamine. Like,
it's impossible.
I think you can prove that Derek Chauvin, or whatever his name is, had a reckless disregard for George Floyd's life for those 8 to 9 minutes. I think you can prove that. I don't think you can prove intent to murder George Floyd for 8 minutes, especially with all these other mitigating circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like one of the...
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to switch off that.
It's one of those things, like, we as conservatives are trying to think, we want Chauvin to go to jail, but he's not going to go to jail if you do this.
Exactly.
And it's, again... And then the conversation goes, well, you don't think it's murder? You don't think it's wrong? It's like, no, we just don't think you can get him on second-degree murder.
We just want him to go there for as long as possible,
I want him to go to jail for 20 years. He can still get 15 to 20 years. He's probably not going to get 25 to 40 years. Be practical is what we're trying to say. And that gets drowned out. And the guy prosecuting him is an extremist, and Keith Ellison, so I have no faith in him.
Yep. So that's the social unrest, and that makes a lot of sense. That's kind of where we're at right now. What's your diet like?
Not the greatest. Do
you like to eat at bars, or what's your favorite food?
Since the pandemic, I've gotten much better at cooking for myself. So, I learned how to make cast iron spaghetti and meatballs. It's good. Doing better burgers and basically turn ground beef into all different types of things from all different parts of the world. What's my favorite type of food? Spicy. I'll say
spicy.
I hot sauce. I mean, I like I'm a big fan of what Mexico, the country, has done in flavor. Thailand too. Not a big fan of Latin America. They kind of failed. Like Latin America is all the best parts of it, no spice. It's like Mexico without spice. It's like, what are you doing with your food? Let's go for Latin food. Let's not. It's just like they mashed up a banana. That's the Mexican got it right. Put a pepper in there. Let's go to Thailand or Mexico, but none of this cowardly food.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. So you do you eat meat then? You're not a vegetarian or anything?
No, eat meat.
Do you think Elon Musk is a smart guy?
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I mean, I don't follow him, but do
you think electric cars is a good route for our car market? And what do you think of his?
Listen, if you can make them work. So I mean, I've been one of the biggest critics of this green energy. One, because it's destroying the planet. Two, because it's hypocritical and destroying the planet. So can we get to green energy? Can we get electric cars? Yeah, give it a shot. Free market. As electric
when the batteries run out in 15 years, as opposed to engines now that last for 40 years. And then now an electric car, the battery's going to die in 15.
Can you argue that standard cars are greener? I hate the term green, but more environmentally friendly than electric cars? Yeah, of course you can make that argument. And I've been making that argument my entire rambling political career.
Yeah.
But I won't say no to electric cars. No, let the electric cars develop. See if they can develop something that is more environmentally friendly. See if the market can push them to a way where they are more efficient, more powerful, and cleaner than gas cars.
As long as we're using nuclear power to make the electricity to charge the cars. That's my only issue. Because if we're using petroleum and if we're using dams and all that kind of shit,
also people need to answer the question: where does electricity come from?
Exactly.
Is it the electricity ferry, or is it coming from somewhere else?
So anyway, that's my beef with Elon Musk, because he doesn't realize that batteries die in 15 years. So, two that are obvious questions that are real quick here is global warming and pro-life. Are you pro-abortion or anything?
So I for the pro-life, pro-choice thing is if we were to sort of if I think the pro-life people, if they heard my opinions, they would call me pro-choice, and the pro-choice people, if they heard my opinions, would call me pro-life.
Interesting. Okay. So you're kind of in the middle on it. It's situational.
So kind of in the middle. Like I don't want a complete ban on abortions.
Yeah.
Should you be able to abort a baby in the third trimester for no reason? No. So I want some abortion
but if you were
restrictions
raped,
in Canada.
then maybe.
I've seen actually I'm on the if you were raped, then yes.
Then you should be able to abort anytime.
You should be able to abort that. I mean, I've seen the trauma of sexual abuse on people, and I've seen the horrors of that. Like I'm never going to ask anyone to carry that burden, and I would only ever support someone who had legitimate sexual abuse. I think it's but aborting a baby isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about the managing of two different evils.
Yeah.
And it's a hard choice. And I don't think it's healthy to like, yo girl, shout your abortion. It's like, no, if someone had to have an abortion in those hard circumstances, I realize it's like that's really sad that you had to do that, and like I'd like to support you. If I don't know you, like me just offering you this. I mean, if you're going through this and you're just like, I'd support you, but like especially someone I know, like how can I help?
Like whatever you want, it should be
whatever
their
you
body,
want.
their
Like
decision,
I'm not going to pretend that your abortion is a great thing. Like we have to understand it's a mental weight, and like there's some situations like your baby's going to be born with no heart and die in 5 minutes.
Yeah, like medical issue situations.
Okay,
that's when abortions are. Or we know that it's going to have a mental handicap or something. That's when you need abortions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean we can. I mean, even then, the baby's gonna have no lungs, or you might die giving birth. Like, there are circumstances where I'm like, okay, yes, these exceptions should make it legal for, and then it's like, okay, then we're talking about the girl who has an abortion in the second trimester because she just doesn't want to have a baby, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing, but I understand where the government shouldn't be, legislating this out. Maybe we shouldn't fund these abortions. Maybe she should have to pay for them. If you just want an abortion, maybe you should have to pay for it, and you shouldn't have to make other people pay for it, but you should have the ability to have it.
Make it a financial thing, yeah.
When I don't think religious people should be financing abortions of someone who just wants to go get drunk and go to a concert next week.
Yep. And they can't afford it.
But I don't think you should also be able to say no, you can't make this decision for your life. So.
Totally.
I mean, I'm at a point where hopefully, if I explain my opinions on abortion in a well-thought-out manner, I can make everyone angry.
Yeah.
That's what I aspire to.
Okay. You caught me at the end there. Didn't expect that. All right. So I just got a few more things. Thanks so much for this. We're at about 2 hours now, but I just got a couple more things I'll ask you, if that's all right. This is the fun one. So we got this election coming up for Trump and Biden and stuff. So do you think Biden needs to win, and then whoever his vice president will be, then they'll fake Biden's death, and then whoever the vice president is will just be the president? Or do you think that Do you think that the world can sustain 4 more years of Trump? And I'm not anti-Trump.
It better man up and take it. I see such a danger. Like, again, with the way the Democrats are crazy, so like, you can get me as a right-wing person to admit that Trump is a crazy, bombastic, narcissistic jackass who says.
But is he good at being a president? Kinda.
Like, so it's like it's sort of what do you value? What's being said or what's being done? Like, it's like the Russia thing. Like, yeah, Trump said a bunch of crazy things about Russia during his when he was running for office. I've been pretty anti-Russian aggression for my entire political commentating career. Like, I can make the argument why Vladimir Putin is evil, but are we really going to talk about Barack Obama, the guy who opened up relations with the Russians, the guy who was on camera being caught colluding with the Russians, Hillary Clinton, who sold 25% of the U.S. uranium supplies to the Russians to empower them, the people who let Russia basically secure their natural gas monopoly over Europe by basically, getting in bed with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Like, so are we talking about, are we anti-Russia? Like,
this is why we have him here, because he remembers all these details, and I smoke too much weed. That's absolutely
true. So if we're going to be if we're anti-Russia, then I'm sorry, then let's throw Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton in jail.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that's that in a nutshell, for sure.
So what's their, so the Democrats, what they're doing and saying is like, someone has to say no, this is inappropriate, and if it's Donald Trump, it's Donald Trump. But there's just there's a lot of principle. Like, Donald Trump says crazy shit about Russia, but when push comes to shove, when the Russian mercenaries attack Americans, he bombs them.
Yes, exactly.
Which is good. Don't kill Americans.
That's what we want. Yeah, that's what we want.
Who knows? Pushing. Yeah, I want you to arm the military factions in Ukraine. And when and then he had the crazy call with the Ukrainian ambassador, which was just silly. It wasn't even that evil, right?
Yeah.
And like if you want to like, oh, is Trump corrupt? I can like let me show you the Biden stuff. Let me show you the Hillary stuff. Let me show you all this. Like,
I saw a video of Biden saying the N-word the other day while in a House assembly. He was saying the N-word. Have you seen this video?
Yeah, I mean,
anybody who's watching, please watch. Just look up Biden saying the N-word while working as a politician.
I mean, Biden's been a fool for years. Been in federal politics. Like, I made a joke like, I'm working for the Biden campaign, and they've hired me as a marketing. So we need to vote between our top two slogans. What's better, Biden 2020? Where am I? Or Biden 2020? We can sniff victory.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so with that, I think I'll end. I want to thank everybody for listening. If you made it this far, this is Daniel Bordman, and this is episode 10 of Canadian Talk. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And that's it.
All right, perfect.
All right, so I'll end it at that here. I'm just trying
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, just let me hit the stop button here. It disappeared. Oh, man, that was great. That was great.
Thanks for listening, and any questions or concerns for the show, as well as voice recordings and voice messages that you'd like us to listen to, or advertisement inquiries, please forward those along to CanadianTalkWithStephan@gmail.com. Thanks. We also have a website, stephanjackson.ca, where you can find a back catalog of all our episodes. And we're also on YouTube, where you can find the video versions.
Canadian Talk.